Good morning, everybody. You're watching our mid-morning edition of Arirang News on this Monday, June 15th. Live from Seoul, I'm Min. Before we get started, here are the stories we're following at this hour. 20 years ago on June 15th, the leaders of the two Koreas held their first summit since the Korean War and agreed on the June 15 declaration. And today, the focus is on President Moon Jae-in as he's about to speak on the recently frosty relations with the North after Pyongyang warned Seoul of regretful and painful times ahead. The U.S. has said it is disappointed over the bitter remarks from North Korea and has warned Pyongyang to resume diplomacy and cooperation. Indirectly responding to the military threats from the North, Washington boasted its steadfast alliance with Seoul. Plus, fears of a second wave of COVID-19 infections loom across the world as many economies are slowly starting to open up again. Already, Beijing is bracing for its own second wave as parts of the Chinese capital were forced to shut down over the emergence of new cases. Eyes are on President Moon Jae-in's upcoming message on this Monday to mark the 20th anniversary of the first ever inter-Korean summit. With North Korea stepping up its threats against South Korea, attention is now on whether it can bring about any breakthrough. President Moon has already sought to get inter-Korean relations back on track and has also extended an offer for healthcare cooperation on COVID-19, although there has been no response from Pyongyang. On Sunday, Seoul's presidential office convened an emergency meeting of the National Security Council to discuss North Korea's threat and response measures. And also on this commemorative day, zero comments or remarks have been made by the North thus far. Staying with the story, this on Tuesday, June 15th, marks the 20th anniversary of the June 15 joint declaration between the two Koreas, the first ever summit between the leaders of the two Koreas since the Korean War in early 1950s. And to mark the event, the South Korean government initially prepared a big anniversary ceremony for today, but officials are now saying that it will be downsized due to the continued aggressive rhetoric from the North. According to the government sources on Sunday, a commemorative dinner banquet scheduled to be held at the Odusan Unification Observatory with South Korean officials, including the Unification Minister, has been scrapped, and it will be a small event instead. Tensions on the Korean peninsula is rising after North Korea severed all communication lines with Seoul and then hiked the rhetoric up another notch by threatening possible military actions. The United States has not provided an official statement on the harsh words used by the North, but has indirectly warned Pyongyang by emphasizing its ironclad alliance with South Korea. Our Choi Jung-yun reports.
Hope for peace and denuclearization has been swiftly replaced by a renewal of tensions. The historic first North Korea-US summit took place just 2 years ago in Singapore, but today North Korea is ramping up its aggressive rhetoric towards South Korea, as well as boasting of developing what it calls more reliable military forces to counter the US. In the past 5 days alone, the North has cut all communication lines with South Korea, threatened to destroy an inter-Korean liaison office, a symbol of Seoul-Pyongyang talks, as well as suggesting possible military actions against the South. To the North's latest comments, the U.S. emphasized a firm joint defense relationship between Seoul and Washington. The Pentagon avoided directly commenting on the rhetoric itself, but watchers say by stressing its solid military alliance with Seoul, the U.S. is warning the North against military action. The U.S. Defense Department also said the North's recent actions were disappointing and urged Pyongyang to resume diplomacy and cooperation, stressing its strong will to keep South Korea safe. Eyes are also on whether North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has sent President Trump a congratulatory birthday message as he turned 74 on June 14th. Kim sent a personally signed letter to President Trump for his last birthday, and Trump also sent a personal message to Kim on his birthday on January 8th this year. Whether Kim has sent a letter to President Trump could be seen as barometer on how the North is approaching the U.S. while taking a torch to its relationship with the South. Kim sending a message to President Trump could be read as showing he wants to avoid damaging North Korea-U.S. ties too much. If there had been a letter, watchers say the possibility of President Trump revealing it is high. But as of yet, no tweet has been sent, nor has a statement been released by the White House. Choi Jung-yun, Arirang News.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said Sunday local time that China is a growing challenge to both the U.S. and Israel, and that the Trump administration views China as a threat to their way of life. Speaking at the American Jewish Committee's virtual conference, Pompeo attacked Beijing for its foreign policy and for violating human rights. He said the world should be alert to the Chinese Communist Party's threat to our way of life and accused China of using disinformation campaigns in other countries. Last week, Pompeo also said that China is more and more strongly oppressing religious freedom. In a move expected to further strain already sour relations between South Korea and Japan, Tokyo has reneged on its pledge to honor the Korean victims of its wartime forced labor. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
After months of delay due to the coronavirus outbreak, Tokyo opens its Industrial Heritage Information Center on Monday. However, the Japanese government has failed to keep its promise to commemorate the Korean victims of wartime forced labor in the facility built with state funds to celebrate the country's industrial revolution. The information center showcases 23 sites of Tokyo's Meiji Industrial Revolution, which were designated as UNESCO World Heritage Sites in 2015, including the notorious Hashima Island, also known as Battleship Island, where many Koreans were forced to work during Japan's colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. When South Korea opposed the UNESCO designation, Japan vowed to take steps to remember the victims. The reality, however, is starkly different. A private organization which runs the information center is one that has long stressed that there was no forced labor.
I have never heard of brutalities on the Hashima Island during the war.
The facility only exhibits Tokyo's industrial accomplishments. It also plays video clips of testimonies from some 30 residents that there was no forced labor or discrimination against Koreans. Documents on the conscription of Korean workers are displayed side by side with documents on the 1965 Treaty on Basic Relations between Japan and the Republic of Korea, reiterating Tokyo's stance that everything has been settled.
Japan seems to be covering up history, showcasing it not only to its own citizens, but also to foreigners as well.
While Tokyo highlights the importance of dialogue to improve the strained ties between the two countries, its distortion of history continues, only further souring bilateral relations between the two neighbors. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
Many parts of the world are currently seeing what could be a second wave of COVID-19 infections. Experts point to the easing of restrictions in many countries as the reason. Our Lee Seung-jae tells us more.
It's what many feared. A second wave of COVID-19 may be sweeping across numerous countries.
The current uptick in cases in some countries can be represented, yes, as a second wave or a second peak.
While countries like Brazil are still struggling to contain the first wave, other countries are already seeing a significant uptick in new infections. In the U.S., more than 20 states are now seeing more infections. These include Arizona, Texas, and California. Many health experts point to the easing of restrictions and the Memorial Day weekend last month as reasons behind the spike. A second wave is also affecting India, which after easing its lockdown is now seeing a huge surge and currently has the fourth most infections in the world. Iran, which saw its infection numbers dip after being one of the worst hit countries in the world, is now seeing a second wave with more than 2,000 cases a day. China is seeing new infections pop up in Beijing. The Chinese capital has seen over 50 new cases in less than a week. While many cite the easing of restrictions and lockdowns, others believe the virus may have mutated. Researchers in Florida says the virus is mutating in a way that makes it easier to attack human cells. However, the WHO says mutations seen so far would not affect the efficacy of vaccines currently being developed. Experts say in a world without a vaccine, a second wave could potentially be worse than the initial one. 이승재, Arirang News.
The U.S. economy is off to the races for a V-shaped recovery, according to White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow. Speaking on Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures, Kudlow said the U.S. would enjoy a very strong recovery, adding 2021 would be a bumper year. Kudlow says 80% of small businesses in the United States are reopening and new business applications are roaring, indicating everything is on track for a full recovery. However, other experts predict a slower recovery due to coronavirus concerns over a second wave of the virus. Hyundai Motor and Kia Motors' environmentally friendly range of models have racked up cumulative sales of more than 1.5 million. Of the total, 1/3 were sold here in South Korea. According to the South Korean automakers on Monday, their combined sales of hybrid, electric, hydrogen, and plug-in hybrid vehicles have now topped 1.53 million. Now, this milestone comes around 11 years after Hyundai sold its first eco-friendly car, the Avante Hybrid. By type, hybrid models are the best sellers, followed by electric and then plug-in hybrids. So far this year alone, eco-friendly car sales account for about 7% of the two companies' total sales. And sales also jumped 12% on year despite the COVID-19 outbreak. South Korea's airlines will further increase their numbers of overseas routes starting next month. According to aviation industry officials, national flag carrier Korean Air will increase its number of flights to the United States and Europe, including flights to San Francisco, Paris, and London. Asiana Airlines will also resume the Incheon-Osaka route 3 times a week starting July. But still, with over COVID-19 concerns, many of these passenger planes will carry cargo instead of people as they are reluctant to travel. Korea's 2 main airlines began increasing their long-haul destinations from the start of June after staying idle for more than 3 months.
Good morning. Regions along Korea's east coast will see scorching hot afternoon temperatures. In fact, Gangneung in Gangwon-do and Gyeongsan in Gyeongsang-Pukdo province are under a heat wave advisory. Meanwhile, it's going to be as hot as yesterday for the capital. And for a closer look at today's daily highs, Gyeongju and Chuncheon will be at 32 degrees Celsius, Seoul at 28 degrees, so not too bad. But we'll see strong sunshine throughout the day today. And very strong UV rays will be down on us during the day. Sinan and Jindo County in Jeollanam-do province will have extreme levels this afternoon, so take all precautions possible. We need to be sun smart. Don't forget to sleep, slap, and wrap. Seoul will see rising temperatures as we head into the end of the week, hovering in the low 30s again. Meanwhile, Jeju will receive monsoon rain again from Wednesday afternoon into Friday, so we are forecast to have higher humidity as well. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
And that's a wrap for this hour on Arirang News. Thanks for watching.